I'm Stephanie Mitchell, 34, and I never imagined finding my mother Margaret alone in a hospital room, withering away from stage 4 pancreatic cancer with just weeks to live. The same woman who raised 3 children had been sick for months, yet her hospital room stood hauntingly empty. No flowers, no cards, no family. My siblings were absent, my father nowhere in sight, only me and a sealed envelope on her nightstand, with 5 devastating words. Read this when I'm gone. Before I tell you how my mother's deathbed letter changed everything, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that subscribe button and like this video if you've ever discovered a family secret that turned your world upside down. Trust me, what I'm about to share will make you question everything about the people you thought you knew. The call came on a rainy Tuesday morning in Seattle. I was preparing a presentation for work when my phone lit up with an unknown Boston number. My first instinct was to let it go to voicemail, probably another telemarketer. But something made me answer. Is this Stephanie Mitchell? A woman's voice asked. Yes, this is she. I'm calling from Massachusetts General Hospital. Your mother, Margaret Mitchell, has listed you as her emergency contact. I'm afraid her condition has deteriorated significantly. My coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattering on the kitchen tile. My mother? What condition? I just talked to her last month and she was fine. The nurse's pause was painfully long. Miss Mitchell, your mother has stage 4 pancreatic cancer. She's been receiving treatment here for the past 7 months. Her doctors are estimating she has only weeks left. She's asking for you. 7 months? The room seemed to tilt beneath me. How could Mom have cancer for 7 months without telling me? Dad would have called. Jason or Rachel would have said something. There must be some mistake, I insisted. My family would have told me if my mother was sick. The nurse's voice softened. I'm very sorry, but there's no mistake. Your mother has requested that you come as soon as possible. I booked the first flight to Boston, my mind racing through a fog of confusion as the plane carried me across the country. Looking out at the clouds below, memories of my childhood flickered like an old film reel. Mom teaching me to ride a bike in our driveway, her hands steady on my back. The 4 of us kids gathered around the kitchen table, while she helped with homework, somehow giving each of us exactly what we needed. Dad coming home late from work, Mom saving him dinner no matter the hour. We'd been close once, the picture-perfect family. Dad built his accounting firm from nothing while Mom raised us with unwavering devotion. My brother Jason, 2 years older, had always been the serious one, following Dad into the business. Rachel, my younger sister by 3 years, was the family peacemaker. We'd grown more distant as adults, sure, but nothing that explained this. The taxi from Logan Airport took me straight to Massachusetts General. With each floor the elevator climbed, dread pooled in my stomach. When I reached the oncology floor, the antiseptic smell hit me first, followed by the hushed, reverent tones of a place where bad news lived. Room 412. I stood outside for a full minute, gathering courage before pushing the door open. Nothing could have prepared me for the sight of my mother, my vibrant, strong mother reduced to a skeletal figure in the hospital bed. Her once thick chestnut hair was gone, her skin yellowed and stretched tight over her cheekbones. Monitors beeped steadily beside her, an IV line trailing from her thin arm. Mom, I whispered. Her eyes fluttered open, struggling to focus. Recognition dawned slowly, her cracked lips attempting a smile. Stephanie, you came. I rushed to her side, taking her fragile hand in mine. Of course I came. Mom, what's happening? Why didn't you tell me you were sick? She tried to speak but was interrupted by a violent coughing fit. I helped her sip water through a straw, noticing the absence of any personal items in the sterile room. No cards, no flowers, no evidence that anyone had been there before me. Where's Dad? Where are Jason and Rachel? I asked once she'd settled. Pain flashed across her face that had nothing to do with her physical condition. They know, sweetheart. They've known from the beginning. I felt like I'd been struck. I fumbled for my phone, stepping into the hallway to call my father. Richard Mitchell answered on the 4th ring, his voice as businesslike as ever. Stephanie, I'm in a meeting. Dad, I'm at the hospital with Mom. She's dying. Where are you? Where is everyone? A long silence followed. Your mother brought this on herself. What are you talking about? She has cancer. This isn't about the cancer. His voice turned cold in a way I'd never heard before. Ask her what she did to this family. Ask her why none of us can even look at her anymore. Before I could respond, he hung up. I stood in the hospital corridor, phone still pressed to my ear, feeling like I'd stepped into someone else's life. When I returned to the room, a nurse was adjusting Mom's medication. Are you her daughter? She asked, her eyes kind. I nodded, still reeling from my father's words. She's been asking for you. It's good you're here. She hasn't had many visitors. My father and siblings know she's here, right? They know how serious this is. The nurse's expression told me everything. Your mother has been here alone for most of her treatments. She told me her family was unavailable. I returned to Mom's bedside as the nurse left. Her eyes opened again, finding mine with surprising clarity. She squeezed my hand with what little strength she had left. The letter, she whispered. On the nightstand. It explains everything. Read it when I'm gone. I spotted the sealed envelope, my name written in her familiar handwriting. Mom, what happened? Dad said I know what he told you. She interrupted, her voice suddenly stronger. But nothing is what it seems, Stephanie. Nothing. She drifted back to sleep, leaving me alone with questions that seemed to multiply by the minute and a sealed letter I wasn't yet allowed to open. The next morning, after spending the night in a chair beside Mom's bed, I decided it was time for answers. I texted Jason and Rachel, calling for a family meeting at our parents' house that afternoon. Mom was stable but unconscious, the doctors assuring me they would call if anything changed. I took a cab to the Victorian home I'd grown up in, the one Dad had purchased when his accounting firm first took off. The house looked the same from the outside: pristine lawn, fresh paint, perfect shutters. Dad had always been obsessive about appearances. Inside, though, something felt off. The family photos on the entryway table had changed. Where there had once been pictures of all of us together, now there were only photos of Dad with Jason and Rachel. Mom had been erased. I was examining these altered memories when the front door opened. Jason walked in, his tailored suit and perfectly knotted tie a miniature version of our father. At 36, had become Dad's right-hand man at the firm, adopting not just his business acumen but his mannerisms as well. This better be important, he said by way of greeting. I had to reschedule 2 client meetings. Our mother is dying alone in a hospital, I replied coldly. Is that important enough for you? Jason's face hardened. I see she's gotten to you already. Playing the victim till the end. Before I could respond, the door opened again, and Rachel slipped in. At 31, she looked tired, her usual polished appearance slightly frayed at the edges. She glanced nervously between Jason and me. Where's Dad? She asked. Too busy to come, I answered. Apparently, everyone's too busy to visit their dying mother. Rachel flinched. Jason crossed his arms. Dad has his reasons. We all do. Then enlighten me, I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. Because I just spent the night watching our mother waste away in an empty hospital room after 7 months of cancer treatments that nobody bothered to tell me about. You moved across the country. Jason shot back. You check in with a phone call once a month. You've hardly been involved in family matters for years. And that justifies keeping Mom's cancer a secret? That makes it okay to abandon her when she's dying. You don't know what she did. Jason's voice rose sharply. 2 years ago, Mom destroyed this family. She betrayed all of us, especially Dad. Rachel made a small, distressed sound. Jason, maybe we shouldn't. No, Rachel, I interrupted, turning to her. I want to hear this. What exactly did Mom do that was so terrible you'd leave her to die alone? Rachel's eyes filled with tears. She looked down at her hands. Some things are better left alone, Steph. Coming back here, stirring everything up, it won't help anyone. It might help Mom, our mother who raised us, who was always there for us. Jason laughed bitterly. The perfect mother act. You always were the most gullible, Stephanie. I felt a surge of rage. Then tell me, what's this terrible secret? What did she do? Ask her yourself, Jason snapped, if she's even capable of telling the truth anymore. I moved toward the living room, noticing for the first time that all the photos there had changed too. Every trace of Mom had been systematically removed. It was as if she'd been erased from our family history. This is sick, I whispered. What did Dad do? Burn all evidence she existed. Dad did what he had to do, Rachel said quietly. After what happened, it was too painful to see her face everywhere. And what exactly happened? Neither of you will say. Jason checked his watch with exaggerated impatience. I'm not reopening old wounds just because you've been out of the loop. Mom made her choices. We made ours. End of story. That's not good enough, I insisted. She's dying, Jason. Whatever happened, whatever she did, she's still our mother. Not to me, he said coldly. Not anymore. He headed for the door. I have clients waiting. Rachel hesitated, looking torn. Steph, please. Just let it go. It'll only hurt you too if you dig into this. Like it's hurting you, I countered, noting the shadows under her eyes. You don't look like someone who's at peace with abandoning their mother. Her face crumpled briefly before she composed herself. I have to pick up the kids from school. She followed Jason out, leaving me alone in the house that no longer held any trace of my mother. Determined to find answers, I headed for the basement where Mom had always stored family mementos. The door was locked, something new, but I remembered where Dad kept spare keys. Inside the basement, cardboard boxes were stacked against one wall, labeled simply, M. Margaret Mitchell, boxed up and put away. My mother's life, contained and hidden. I had just begun opening the first box when I heard the front door open upstairs. Heavy footsteps crossed the floor above. Dad was home. I froze, listening as he moved through the house, then called out, "Stephanie? Are you still here?" I quickly replaced the box lid and headed upstairs. Dad stood in the kitchen, his once dark hair now completely gray, his posture rigid as always. He looked older than his 60 years, new lines carved into his face. "You shouldn't be down there," he said, his tone clipped. "I'm trying to understand what's happening," I replied. "My mother is dying, and everyone's acting like she deserves it." Dad's expression darkened. "Your mother made her bed. Now she's lying in it. She has cancer. How can that possibly be her fault? The cancer isn't her punishment, Stephanie. It's just bad timing." He straightened his tie, a nervous habit I'd seen countless times. "I suggest you get back on a plane to Seattle. There's nothing for you here. I'm not leaving Mom alone." "Then you've chosen your side without knowing the facts." Typical. He moved to the door that led to his home office. "I want you out of this house by the time I finish my work calls. If you insist on staying in Boston, get a hotel." "Dad, please." He turned, his expression more severe than I'd ever seen it. "Knowing the truth will only hurt you too, Stephanie. Some secrets should stay buried, even if your mother isn't ready to take hers to the grave." The office door closed with finality, leaving me standing in the kitchen of my childhood home, feeling like a stranger. With Dad locked in his office, I returned to the basement, determined to find anything that would explain what had happened to my family. The boxes labeled M. contained a methodical archive of my mother's life. Photo albums, personal documents, even her favorite sweaters and scarves, all packed away as if in preparation for her death long before her diagnosis. In the third box, beneath layers of carefully folded clothes, I found a leather-bound journal. My mother had always kept journals, a practice it adopted from her as a teenager. This one was relatively new, the pages filled with her elegant handwriting. I checked the dates, entries spanning the last 3 years, stopping abruptly 18 months ago. I settled on the basement steps and began to read. At first, the entries were mundane: gardening plans, book club thoughts, notes about Jason's promotion and Rachel's children. Then, about 2 years ago, the tone shifted. Mom began writing about Dad working increasingly late hours, about tense silences at dinner, about arguments behind closed doors. "Richard seems distracted lately," one entry read. When I asked about the firm's new clients, he shut down the conversation entirely. 25 years of marriage, and suddenly am not privy to discussions about his work? Something doesn't feel right. 2 weeks later, found unusual bank statements in Richard's desk, large transfers to accounts I don't recognize. When I asked, he claimed they were investments for our retirement. His explanation made sense, but his eyes wouldn't meet mine. A month after that, Richard insists on handling his own laundry suddenly. After all these years of me doing it, says it's to lighten my load. Found a receipt for a hotel downtown in his pocket yesterday. We haven't stayed at a hotel in Boston since our anniversary 5 years ago. The entries grew increasingly worried, then suspicious, then fearful. The last entry, dated 18 months ago, was particularly disturbing. Confronted Richard about the lipstick on his collar. He didn't deny it this time. Instead, he threatened me. Said I'd better keep my mouth shut if I knew what was good for me and the children. I don't recognize the man I married anymore. After that, nothing. The remaining pages were blank. I set the journal aside, my hands trembling. Was this it? Had Mom discovered Dad was having an affair? That hardly seemed enough to turn the entire family against her. Digging deeper into the boxes, I found a folder containing medical records. Mom had been seeing doctors long before her cancer diagnosis specialists in Boston, New York, even Chicago. The earliest visits dated back 2 years, around the time the journal entries started changing tone. Another folder held bank statements, copies Mom had apparently made secretly. They showed what she'd mentioned in her journal. Large sums of money transferring from Dad's primary accounts to offshore holdings I'd never heard of. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, moving in patterns that seemed designed to avoid detection. As I was examining these statements, the basement door opened. I quickly shoved the papers back into the box. Stephanie? Are you still down there? A woman's voice called, not Dad's. Mrs. Parker, our next-door neighbor for as long as I could remember, appeared at the top of the stairs. She was in her 70s now. Her once red hair faded to a soft pink-white. Mrs. Parker. Hi, I said, climbing the stairs. Dad let you in. He said he had to step out for a meeting. Asked me to make sure you weren't. Well, his words were causing trouble. She shook her head disapprovingly. That man. I came over because I heard you were in town, and I wanted to see you. We moved to the kitchen, where Mrs. Parker declined tea but sat at the counter, her eyes soft with concern. I've been to see Mom, I told her. She's not going to make it. I know, dear. I've been trying to visit her when I can, though your father made it clear the family preferred she have no visitors. You've seen her? Thank God someone has. I felt a rush of gratitude. Mrs. Parker, what happened? Why is everyone acting like Mom did something terrible? The older woman sighed heavily. There was a horrible scene, at Thanksgiving 2 years ago. The whole family was here, including your Uncle Thomas. I could hear the shouting from my house. After that day, your mother seemed to vanish from family life. I'd see her leaving the house alone, looking thinner each time. Your father started telling people she was unwell. Unwell how? He implied she was having some kind of breakdown. Said she'd become paranoid, delusional. But Stephanie. Mrs. Parker leaned forward, her voice dropping. Your mother came to see me several times. She seemed frightened, but not delusional. She asked me to keep an eye on the house, to notice who came and went. She said she was gathering evidence. Evidence of what? She wouldn't say exactly, but she mentioned visiting a lawyer several times, Bramwell and Associates downtown, said she needed to protect herself. The front door opened abruptly, and Mrs. Parker straightened, patting my hand. I should go. Come see me before you leave town, dear. She slipped out the back door just as my father's voice boomed from the entryway. Stephanie. I thought I made myself clear. I walked into the living room to find him removing his coat, his face flushed with anger. I'm leaving, I said, gathering my purse. But I want you to know I'm staying in Boston until Mom passes. And I'm going to find out what happened, Dad, one way or another. His face darkened. You're just like her, can't leave well enough alone. Go dig if you must, but don't come crying to me when you discover your perfect mother isn't who you thought she was. As I headed for the door, he called after me, his voice unnervingly calm. And Stephanie, I'd be careful about going through private property. Those boxes aren't yours to rifle through. I turned back, meeting his gaze. They're Mom's things. And your mother is still my wife. Everything in this house belongs to me. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Knowing the truth will only hurt you too. Remember that. I left the house with the certainty that whatever had happened to my family was far more complicated and dangerous than a simple affair. When I returned to the hospital the next morning, Mom's condition had worsened. The doctor explained that the cancer had spread aggressively to her liver, and her body was beginning to shut down. I sat beside her bed, holding her thin hand as she drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes recognizing me, sometimes lost in memories I couldn't access. The garden needs watering, she murmured once, her eyes unfocused. Richard likes the roses best. I'll take care of it, Mom. I promised, though we both knew she wouldn't see another spring. Around noon, I stepped out to find coffee, my body heavy with exhaustion and grief. When I returned to Mom's room, I was surprised to find someone else there, a man in his 60s with the same square jaw and broad shoulders as my father, but softer somehow, his face lined with a gentleness Dad had never possessed. Uncle Thomas, I said, nearly dropping my coffee. My father's younger brother turned, equally startled. Stephanie. I didn't know you were here. I've been here since yesterday. I moved closer to Mom's bed. Where have you been? Where has anyone been? Thomas looked down at my mother's sleeping form, genuine sadness in his eyes. It's complicated, Stephanie, so I keep hearing. Yet nobody will explain what exactly is so complicated about supporting your family when someone is dying. He sighed heavily, running a hand through his graying hair. Your father has made it very difficult for any of us to be here for Margaret. He trailed off, glancing toward the door as if worried Dad might appear. Has what, Uncle Thomas? Your father has always been controlling, Stephanie, you know that, but in the last couple of years, it's become something else entirely. When he didn't elaborate, I felt my patience snap. Mom is dying. Whatever family drama happened can't possibly justify abandoning her like this. Lower your voice, Thomas warned, again checking the door. Your father has people watching. He knows when any of us visit Margaret. The paranoia in his tone startled me. What are you talking about? What people? Your father has connections I don't think you understand. He gathered his coat. I should go. I've stayed too long already. I followed him out of the room and down the hospital corridor. Uncle Thomas, wait. He kept walking, forcing me to chase him to the elevator. When the doors closed behind us, leaving us alone, I pressed him again. Please, help me understand what's happening. Thomas stared at the descending floor numbers, his profile tight with stress. Your mother discovered something about Richard. Something that could ruin him. Instead of addressing it, he systematically turned everyone against her. Told your siblings she was planning to destroy the family, that she was blackmailing him. That's ridiculous. Mom would never, of course she wouldn't. The elevator reached the parking level, but Thomas held the door open button. Richard claimed Margaret was having an affair, that she'd been unfaithful for years. He fabricated evidence, showed it to your siblings, to me, to everyone who would listen. And people believed him? Over Mom. Thomas' expression was pained. Your father can be very convincing, Stephanie. He had emails, hotel receipts, photographs that seemed to prove his story. And Margaret. She refused to defend herself. Said she wouldn't dignify his lies with a response. The elevator buzzed in protest at being held too long. Thomas released the button and stepped out, moving quickly toward a blue sedan parked in the corner. I followed, almost running to keep up. Why would Dad make up something like that? I demanded. Thomas reached his car and unlocked it, finally turning to face me. To discredit her before she could expose him. Classic abuser tactic: isolate the victim, turn everyone against them. Abuser? Dad never. There are different kinds of abuse, Stephanie. Your father's has always been about control. He opened his car door. That's all I can say. For your sake and mine. Uncle Thomas. Please. Visit your sister, he said suddenly. Rachel knows more than she's letting on. She's afraid of Richard, but she might talk to you. With that cryptic advice, he drove away, leaving me standing alone in the parking garage with more questions than answers. That evening, after making sure Mom was settled for the night, I drove to Rachel's suburban home. My sister had married her college sweetheart, Paul, and they had 2 children, Lily, age 6, and Noah, age 4. Their house was a picture of domestic tranquility. White picket fence, children's bicycles on the lawn, Halloween decorations already adorning the porch, though it was only mid-September. I knocked, hearing the chaotic sounds of family dinner time inside. Paul answered, his surprise quickly morphing into wariness. Stephanie. Rachel didn't mention you were coming over. I didn't tell her. Can I come in? He hesitated, then stepped aside. The smell of spaghetti sauce filled the air, and I could hear Lily and Noah arguing good-naturedly in the kitchen. Rachel appeared in the hallway, a dish towel in her hands. Steph, what are you doing here? I need to talk to you. Alone. Her eyes darted to Paul, who nodded slightly. I'll finish dinner and get the kids sorted, he said. Rachel led me to a small home office off the main hallway, closing the door behind us. You shouldn't have come without calling first. Would you have agreed to see me if I had? She didn't answer, fidgeting with papers on the desk, obviously hiding something beneath them. I saw Uncle Thomas at the hospital today, I said, watching her reaction carefully. He suggested I talk to you. Rachel's hands froze. Thomas visited Mom? Dad will be furious. Why? Why does Dad get to dictate who visits our dying mother? You don't understand the situation, Stephanie. Then help me understand. Mom is going to die any day now, and I still have no idea why her entire family has turned against her. Rachel sank into the desk chair, suddenly looking very small. Dad has made it clear what happens to anyone who sides with Mom. Jason and I have families to consider, futures at stake. Are you saying Dad threatened you? Not in so many words, but he made it clear that anyone who maintained a relationship with Mom would be cut off financially, emotionally, completely. He controls everything, Steph. The family money, the business where Jason works, the trust funds for our kids' education. So you abandoned Mom for money. I couldn't keep the disgust from my voice. It wasn't just that. Tears sprang to Rachel's eyes. Dad showed us proof that Mom was planning to leave him for another man, that she was going to take half of everything and destroy the business in the process. He said she'd been lying to all of us for years, and you believed him. The evidence was convincing. She wouldn't meet my eyes. And then there was the incident at Thanksgiving. What incident? Nobody will tell me exactly what happened. Rachel's composure cracked. She began to cry in earnest, her shoulders shaking. Mom confronted Dad about his affair with Diane from the office. She had photos, hotel receipts. Dad went ballistic, Accused her of fabricating everything to cover up her own infidelity. It was horrible, Steph. The things he said to her, the names he called her. So Mom accused Dad of cheating, and his response was to accuse her of the same thing. Rachel nodded miserably. After that, Dad gave us an ultimatum. Support him or support her. He said anyone who chose her would be dead to him. And you chose him, I said flatly. I was scared. Paul had just been laid off, the kids were starting private school, and Dad was threatening to cut us off completely. What choice did I have? I was about to respond when I noticed the corner of a document peeking out from under the papers Rachel had been nervously arranging. The letterhead was visible. Bramwell and Associates, the law firm Mrs. Parker had mentioned. What's that? I asked, gesturing to the paper. Rachel followed my gaze and quickly tried to cover it completely. Nothing. Just household bills. I moved faster than she expected, snatching the document before she could stop me. It was a letter from a lawyer addressed to my mother, dated just 3 months ago. It referenced the storage unit arrangement and securing the evidence in the event of your incapacitation. Mom hired a lawyer. I looked up at Rachel, who had gone pale. What evidence? What storage unit? I shouldn't have kept it, she whispered. Dad would be furious if he knew. How do you even have this? It came to the house after Mom moved out. I intercepted it before Dad could see it. She opened a drawer and pulled out a small key. This came with it. It's for a storage unit at Safekeep on Riverside Drive. Unit 223. She pressed the key into my palm. I've never gone there. I was too afraid of what I might find, and of Dad finding out I knew about it. Why keep this from me yesterday? Why perpetuate Dad's lies? Rachel looked genuinely tormented. Because I'm a coward, Steph. Because it was easier to go along with what Jason and Dad were saying than to admit I'd betrayed Mom when she needed me most. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. Is she suffering? The question was so unexpected, so childlike, that my anger faltered. The doctors have her on strong pain medication. But she's alone, Rachel. She thinks her children hate her. I don't hate her. Rachel's voice broke. I'm just terrified of him. Before I could respond, the office door opened. Paul stood there, his expression grim. Rachel, your father's on his way over. He just called from the car. Rachel's face drained of color. How did he know? How does he always know? I clutched the key tightly in my palm. I should go. The back door, Paul said urgently. Take my car. He handed me his keys. I'll tell Richard we haven't seen you. As I slipped out the back, I heard Rachel's desperate whisper. Please be careful, Steph. You don't know what he's capable of. The Safekeep storage facility was located in an industrial area near the river, its rows of orange doors illuminated by harsh security lights. I found Unit 223, at the end of a long corridor of identical doors, my heart pounding as I inserted the key Rachel had given me. The lock turned easily, the door rolling upward to reveal a small space packed with methodically organized banker's boxes, each labeled in my mother's precise handwriting. Financial records, recordings, photographs, correspondence. I started with financial records, finding folders containing detailed documentation of my father's business dealings, going back 5 years. Bank statements showed regular transfers to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and Switzerland. There were discrepancies between the firm's reported income and its actual revenue, evidence of systematic embezzlement from both the company and its clients. Mom had highlighted specific transactions, making notes in the margins: diverted from Reynolds' account, client funds misappropriated, tax fraud. The photographs box contained something even more damning: surveillance photos of my father with a woman I recognized as his executive assistant, Diane Baker. The images showed them entering hotels, dining at intimate restaurants, exchanging kisses in a car. Some photos were dated as far back as 3 years ago, long before the Thanksgiving confrontation Rachel had described. Most disturbing was the recordings box. It contained several USB drives, each labeled with dates. I plugged one into my laptop and heard my father's voice fill the storage unit. You breathe a word of this to anyone, Margaret, and you'll regret it for the rest of your life. His tone was cold, calculating, nothing like the father I thought I knew. Mom's voice responded, steady despite the clear threat. You've been stealing from your clients for years, Richard. It has to stop. And you think you can stop me? Who would believe you over me? I built that firm from nothing. I've cultivated relationships with every judge and police chief in this city for 30 years. You're just a housewife with delusions of grandeur. I have evidence, which will mysteriously disappear the moment you try to use it. And then what happens to our children? To their reputations when their mother is discredited as a vindictive, mentally unstable woman? Think about it, Margaret. You have everything to lose here. I have everything to gain. I listened to file after file, each more disturbing than the last. My father threatening my mother, gaslighting her, even discussing ways to have her committed to a psychiatric facility if she didn't cooperate. In the final recording, dated just before her cancer diagnosis, Head issued his ultimatum. You have two choices, Margaret. You can leave this house quietly, tell everyone you need time to yourself, and never speak of what you know to anyone. I'll provide a reasonable monthly allowance, and you can live out your days in peace. Or you can fight me, and I will destroy you so completely that even our children will believe you deserved it. I sat back against the wall of the storage unit, shaking. This wasn't just about an affair. My father was a criminal, embezzling from his own firm and clients. And when my mother discovered it, rather than turning himself in, had systematically destroyed her reputation and isolated her from her family. With trembling hands, I opened the final box, correspondence. Inside were letters from clients who had discovered discrepancies in their accounts, communications with a private investigator Mom had hired, and drafts of letters to the State Bar Association and the FBI that she had apparently never sent. At the bottom of the box was a folder labeled Jason. Inside was evidence that my brother had become complicit in Dad's schemes over the past 3 years. Head helped create false accounting records and had personally diverted client funds. There were photos of him shredding documents late at night at the office, screenshots of incriminating emails. My mother had uncovered not just my father's crimes but my brother's as well. Reeling from these revelations, I packed the most damning evidence into my bag and relocked the storage unit. I needed to confront Jason with what I'd found to understand how deep the corruption went. I drove straight to his downtown apartment, a sleek high-rise overlooking the harbor. When he opened the door, his surprise quickly turned to hostility. What are you doing here? It's nearly midnight. We need to talk. I pushed past him into the apartment. I know everything, Jason. About Dad's embezzlement, about the offshore accounts, about your involvement. His face went rigid, then carefully composed itself. I don't know what you're talking about. I pulled out the documents from my bag, spreading them across his glass coffee table. Mom knew. She had proof of all of it. That's why Dad turned everyone against her, why he isolated her. He was covering up his crimes, and you helped him. Jason stared at the documents, his confident facade crumbling. Where did you get these? Mom's storage unit. The one she set up before Dad could destroy all the evidence. He sank onto the couch, running his hands through his hair, a gesture so like our father's that it sent a chill through me. You don't understand, Stephanie. By the time I realized what Dad was doing, I was already implicated. He made sure of that. So you chose to become his accomplice rather than doing the right thing? Rather than supporting Mom when she tried to stop him? Dad said Mom was going to report us both, that she didn't care if I went to prison. He showed me emails, fake emails. Just like the fake evidence of her affair. I sat across from him. He played us all, Jason. He manipulated us into abandoning Mom when she needed us most. Jason's expression flickered between defiance and despair. Even if that's true, it's too late now. The damage is done. It's not too late to be there for Mom in her final days. It's not too late to make this right. Make it right. He gave a hollow laugh. Do you have any idea what Dad would do? He has connections you can't imagine. People who owe him favors. People who can make problems and people disappear. The chill I'd felt earlier intensified. Are you saying Dad is dangerous? Jason met my eyes, real fear visible in his. I'm saying be careful, Stephanie. Dad knows you're digging. He has people watching you, just like he had people watching Mom. Why do you think he knew exactly when you visited Rachel tonight? How do you know about that? Because he called me right after he headed to her house. He wants us all to present a united front against you now. He says you're becoming unstable just like Mom. Jason lowered his voice. Get out of Boston, Stephanie. Go back to Seattle before you end up like her. Dying alone while my family pretends I don't exist. Is that what you mean? Jason didn't answer, but his expression told me everything. Whatever my father had done to manipulate him, fear was now the primary tool keeping him in line. I'm not leaving Mom, I said, gathering the documents. And I'm not letting Dad get away with this. Then be smarter than Mom was, Jason warned. Dad always stays one step ahead. Always. As if on cue, my phone rang. The hospital's number flashed on the screen, sending my heart into my throat. Miss Mitchell. The nurse's voice was urgent. You need to come back to the hospital right away. Your mother's condition has deteriorated significantly, and... She hesitated. Your father is here, has trying to make decisions about her care that contradict her wishes. The doctor is holding him off for now, but you should hurry. I ended the call, already moving toward the door. I have to go. Mom's worse, and Dad's at the hospital trying to override her care directives. Jason stood, conflict evident on his face. Stephanie, wait. No more waiting, I said firmly. Either you're with Mom or you're with Dad. Time to choose, Jason. I left him standing in his expensive apartment, surrounded by the trappings of a life built on corruption and betrayal, and raced to be by my mother's side before it was too late. When I arrived at the hospital, I found Mom's floor in a state of controlled chaos. 2 security guards stood outside her room, and I could hear my father's raised voice from down the hall. I am her husband. I have every right to make these decisions. Dr. Patel, Mom's oncologist, stood her ground. Mr. Mitchell, your wife has an advance directive naming Stephanie as her medical proxy. Unless you can provide legal documentation overriding that, we must follow her wishes. Dad's face was flushed with anger. When he spotted me approaching, his expression darkened further. Here she is now, the daughter who shows up at the last minute and thinks she knows best. What are you trying to do, Dad? I asked, stepping between him and the doctor. Your mother should be moved to hospice care. There's no point continuing treatment. Dr. Patel interjected gently. Miss Mitchell, your mother's condition has indeed worsened. However, she's currently stable on pain management. The aggressive intervention your father is suggesting, removing her from the hospital immediately, could cause unnecessary suffering. I turned back to my father, suddenly seeing him with new clarity. You just want her out of here so you can control who sees her. So you can make sure she dies without telling anyone else what she knows about you. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. You're becoming hysterical, Stephanie. Perhaps you need sedation. The casual menace in his tone sent ice through my veins. This was not the father I thought I knew. This was the man from the recordings, calculating, manipulative, willing to do anything to protect himself. I have Mom's advance directive right here. I told Dr. Patel, pulling the document from my bag. I'd found it in the storage unit, thankfully. She stays here, under your care, with me as her proxy. Dad stepped closer, his voice dropping so only I could hear. You have no idea what you're getting into, Stephanie. Back off now, while you still can. Or what? You'll destroy me like you destroyed Mom. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Your mother destroyed herself. Remember that when you're following in her footsteps. He brushed past me, pausing to add, I'll be speaking with my lawyer. This isn't over. Dr. Patel waited until head left before turning to me. Your mother is asking for you. She's had a moment of clarity, but I must warn you, these moments typically come near the end. Her organs are shutting down. It won't be long now. I nodded, trying to compose myself before entering Mom's room. She looked even smaller than before. Her breathing labored despite the oxygen mask. But her eyes were alert, finding mine immediately. He was here, she whispered as I took her hand. I know, Mom. Has gone now. The storage unit. I found it. I know everything. Relief flooded her face. Be careful, Stephanie. Richard is more dangerous than you know. I'm beginning to understand that. I squeezed her hand gently. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry we all abandoned you. Not your fault, she murmured, her eyes drifting closed. Has been playing this game a long time. She fell asleep, her breathing slightly easier now. I settled into the chair beside her bed, keeping vigil as night fell. Around 9, I stepped out briefly to find coffee and check my messages. 3 missed calls from Rachel. A text, Dad knows you went to the storage unit. Has furious. Be careful. As I was reading this, another text came through from an unknown number. You're making the same mistakes your mother made. Final warning. My hand shook as I put the phone away. Returning to Mom's floor, I spotted a man I didn't recognize standing by the nurse's station, watching me. When our eyes met, he didn't look away but instead spoke quietly into a phone. Back in Mom's room, I double-checked that the door was securely closed. Mom was still sleeping, monitors beeping steadily beside her. I pulled the curtains closed and tried to calm my racing heart. My phone rang. Uncle Thomas. Stephanie, where are you? He sounded urgent. At the hospital with Mom. Why? Someone broke into my house tonight. My home office was ransacked, specifically the drawer where I keep documents your mother gave me last year. My blood ran cold. What documents? Copies of everything she had on Richard. She was smart enough to create backups. One set with me, one in the storage unit, one with her lawyer. How did you know about the storage unit? I helped her set it up. He paused. Stephanie, you need protection. Richard knows you've seen the evidence. He has a man named Garrett who does his dirty work, an ex-client who owed Richard for keeping him out of prison. Dark hair, scar along his jawline. The description matched the man I'd just seen watching me. I think he's here, at the hospital, Thomas cursed. Stay in your mother's room. I'm calling a friend on the police force. And Stephanie, don't go to your hotel tonight. Richard will have someone waiting. After hanging up, I tried to think clearly despite the fear clouding my thoughts. I needed to get the evidence from my bag to somewhere safe. If Dad was willing to break into Thomas' house, he wouldn't hesitate to come after me next. I was considering my options when my phone chimed with a text from Rachel. Dad just left our house. He knows you have evidence. Said he's taking care of the situation. What does that mean? Before I could respond, another text came in from Jason. Where are you? Dad has Garrett looking for you. This isn't a game, Stephanie. A soft knock at the door made me jump. A nurse entered, checking Mom's vitals. How is she? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, holding her own for now. The nurse glanced at me with concern. Are you all right, Miss Mitchell? You look frightened. I debated how much to say. I'm fine. Just worried about my mother. Security is right outside if you need anything, she assured me, patting my arm before leaving. I pulled my chair closer to Mom's bed, clutching my bag containing the evidence. The idea that had been forming suddenly crystallized. I needed to get these documents to Mom's lawyer immediately. Thomas had mentioned that Mom had given a set to her attorney, which meant Bramwell and Associates might already be building a case. As I was working up the courage to leave Mom's room, my phone rang again. Rachel, her voice high with panic. Stephanie, I just overheard Dad on the phone with Garrett. He told him to secure the situation no matter what it takes. I think he means I know what he means. I interrupted. Rachel, I need your help. Can you come to the hospital? Bring Paul if possible. We're already on our way. She said. Jason called us. He's meeting us there too. Jason. I couldn't hide my surprise. He said he's made his choice. We both have. Her voice broke. We should have made it 2 years ago. Relief washed through me, followed quickly by renewed determination. My siblings had finally seen through our father's manipulation. Now we needed to make sure the evidence reached the right hands before Dad could stop us. I hung up and gazed at Mom's sleeping form. I'll be right back, I whispered, though I wasn't sure she could hear me. I'm going to fix this, Mom. I promise. Opening the door cautiously, I spotted the same dark-haired man from earlier, now sitting in the waiting area with a clear view of Mom's room. Our eyes met, and he stood, his hand moving inside his jacket. I slammed the door shut, heart pounding. I was trapped, with Garrett outside and my mother helpless beside me. Desperate, I texted Jason. Garrett outside Mom's room. Can't leave. Evidence in my bag. His response came seconds later. Create a distraction. Thomas contacting hospital security now. Thinking fast, I hit the nurse call button repeatedly. When the nurse rushed in, I pointed to one of Mom's monitors that was beeping normally. Something's wrong with her oxygen levels. I lied. The numbers dropped suddenly. As the nurse checked the equipment, I slipped past her to the door, peering out. Garrett was now arguing with a security guard who had approached him. Taking advantage of the distraction, I hurried down the hall toward the elevators, head down, praying he wouldn't spot me. It almost reached the elevator when I heard heavy footsteps behind me. I didn't look back, instead ducking into the stairwell and racing down the steps 2 at a time. 3 flights down, the door above me banged open. Garrett's voice echoed in the stairwell. Miss Mitchell, I just want to talk. I continued downward, my breath coming in gasps, the bag with the evidence clutched tightly against my chest. 2 more flights and I burst out onto the main floor, nearly colliding with Jason. Stephanie, this way. He grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the emergency exit. Garrett's right behind me. I gasped. I know. Rachel and Paul are waiting in the car. Thomas has police on the way. He pushed open the door, triggering an alarm. Give me the bag. I'll take it to Bramwell. You go with Rachel. Can I trust you? I searched his face. No more lies, he promised. No more being Dad's puppet. I handed him the bag, just as the stairwell door behind us banged open. Garrett emerged, his face contorted with anger when he saw us. Split up, Jason ordered, pushing me toward the parking garage while he ran in the opposite direction with the evidence. I sprinted toward the garage, the sound of footsteps behind me confirming that Garrett had chosen to follow me rather than Jason. My lungs burned, fear propelling me forward, until I spotted Rachel's SUV idling near the exit, Paul at the wheel. Rachel flung open the door. Get in. I dove into the back seat as Paul floored the accelerator. In the side mirror, I saw Garrett emerge from the hospital, phone to his ear, watching our car disappear into the night. Where's Jason? Rachel asked, twisting to look at me from the front seat. Taking the evidence to Mom's lawyer. I struggled to catch my breath. Dad's going to know you helped me. We know, Paul said grimly, navigating through downtown traffic. We've already packed essentials. We're taking the kids to my parents' cabin in Vermont until this is over. Rachel reached back to squeeze my hand. We should have believed Mom from the beginning. I'm so sorry, Stephanie. We all were manipulated, I said. But it ends now. My phone rang, Thomas. Jason made it to Bramwell's office. The lawyer is contacting the FBI tonight. You need to stay hidden until they can bring Richard in. What about Mom? I can't leave her alone with Dad potentially still at the hospital. I'm with her now, Thomas assured me. And there are 2 police officers outside her door. She's safe. For the first time since arriving in Boston, I felt a glimmer of hope. My father's carefully constructed web of lies was finally unraveling, and my mother would not die alone. Rachel and Paul took me to their friend's vacant vacation home on the outskirts of the city, a small cottage tucked away in a wooded area where we would be difficult to find. We arrived just after midnight, the house dark and silent as Paul disabled the alarm system. You'll be safe here, Rachel assured me, showing me to a small guest room. No one knows about this place except us and the Hansons, and they're in Europe until November. I sank onto the bed, the events of the day catching up with me in a wave of exhaustion. I can't believe this is happening. That Dad would go this far. I've been afraid of him for years, Rachel admitted, sitting beside me. The way he controlled every aspect of our lives, how he could turn from charming to terrifying in an instant. Mom tried to protect us from it. I see that now. Why didn't she just leave him? Take us with her. Rachel's expression grew somber. She tried once, when you were away at summer camp. I was 14, Jason 16. Dad tracked us down at a motel 2 towns over. The things he said to her that night. She shuddered. After that, she focused on building evidence instead. I think she knew the only way to truly escape him was to have enough leverage that he couldn't come after us. Paul appeared in the doorway. I've secured the perimeter as best I can. All doors and windows locked, security system armed. We should try to get some rest. Rachel nodded, standing. It'll take first watch. Well, switch in 4 hours. Watch? You think Dad would actually? I don't know what he'd do, Rachel interrupted. And that's what scares me most. Left alone, I tried to sleep but found myself staring at the ceiling, mind racing. My phone, set to silent, lit up with a text from Jason. Evidence safely delivered. Bramwell filing emergency injunctions tonight. FBI meeting first thing tomorrow. How's Mom? I realized I hadn't checked on Mom since fleeing the hospital. I quickly texted Thomas, who responded that she was stable but declining rapidly. The doctors didn't expect her to regain consciousness again. The thought that I might not get to say goodbye properly sent a fresh wave of grief through me. After everything she'd endured, all the betrayal and isolation, she deserved to be surrounded by the children, who now understood the truth. Around 4 a.m, I was startled awake by a soft knock. I hadn't realized I'd dozed off. Stephanie. It was Paul. Jason's here. I stumbled to the door, finding my brother standing in the small living room, his suit rumpled and dark circles under his eyes. What happened? I asked. Bramwell's team worked through the night, he replied, sinking onto the couch. They've filed for emergency protective orders against Dad for all of us, including Mom. The FBI has opened an investigation into the firm's finances based on the evidence Mom gathered. And Dad. Jason ran a hand through his hair. That's the thing. No one can find him. Has not at the house, not at the office. His assistant Diane is missing too. A chill ran through me. Hez running. Looks that way. His private banking accounts were emptied this morning. Bramwell thinks he's headed for the Caymans, where some of those offshore accounts are held. Rachel appeared from the kitchen with coffee for everyone. So it's over? Hez gone. Not quite, Jason said grimly. Garrett is still unaccounted for, and Dad made a call to him just before his phone went dark. The implication hung heavy in the air. Dad might be fleeing, but he could still be dangerous from afar. There's something else, Jason added. Thomas found additional documents in Mom's safe deposit box. Apparently, Dad's been doing this for decades. His first wife Dad was married before Mom. I interrupted, shocked. Jason nodded. Briefly, in his 20s. A woman named Elaine Connor. She mysteriously abandoned their marriage after accusing him of financial improprieties. Sound familiar? He did the same thing to her, Rachel whispered. Made her look crazy, isolated her. Except Elaine didn't have the resources or support to fight back, Jason confirmed. She disappeared from Boston entirely. Mom managed to track her down living under a new name in Arizona. They've been in contact for the past year. This new revelation stunned me into silence. Our father was not just a criminal but a serial abuser who had destroyed multiple women's lives. And now he was on the run, potentially still a threat. My phone rang Thomas again. "You need to come to the hospital," he said without preamble. "Margaret's taken a turn. The doctors don't think she'll last the day." Grief clutched at my throat. "Well, be right there. Be careful," Thomas warned. "Richard may be gone, but Garrett was spotted near the hospital an hour ago." I relayed the message to Jason and Rachel, who exchanged worried glances. "I'm not missing Mom's final moments because of Dad," Rachel said firmly. "Not again." "Well, go together," Jason decided. "Safety in numbers. And I've hired private security who will meet us there." As dawn broke, we made our way to the hospital in Paul's SUV, watching carefully for any sign of Garrett or other threats. The hospital parking lot was quiet, a few early shift workers trickling in. Jason's security team, 2 former military men with discreet earpieces, flanked us as we entered the building. In the elevator, Rachel gripped my hand tightly. "I'm scared to face her. After everything we did." "Mom understands manipulation better than anyone," I assured her. "She'll forgive you." When we reached Mom's floor, we found Thomas standing outside her room, speaking with a police officer. His face brightened with relief when he saw all 3 of us together. "She's been asking for you," he said. "All of you." The officer nodded to us. "We've had the floor secured since last night. No sign of Garrett or your father." "Thank you," Jason said, shaking the officer's hand before turning to us. "Ready." We entered Mom's room together, struck by the change in her since yesterday. Her breathing was shallow, her skin waxy and gray. The monitors beside her beeped more slowly, more ominously. Yet when her eyes opened and found the 3 of us standing together at her bedside, a smile transformed her face. She looked, for just a moment, like the mother we remembered from before everything went wrong. "My children," she whispered, her voice barely audible. All together, Rachel broke first, rushing to the bed and taking Mom's hand. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have believed you. I should have stood by you." "Shh," Mom soothed, summoning strength from somewhere deep within. "Your father is very convincing. He had decades of practice." Jason stepped forward, his usual confident demeanor stripped away, leaving only raw remorse. "I helped him hurt you, Mom. I believed his lies and spread them myself. I'll never forgive myself for that." Mom's eyes, though clouded with pain, were clear in their understanding. "You were trapped, just like I was, but you broke free. That's all that matters now." I moved to her other side, taking her free hand. "We know everything, Mom. About Dad's crimes, about Elaine, about how you protected us even when we abandoned you." "Not abandoned," she corrected gently. "Misled. There's a difference." She paused, gathering strength. Richard was always 2 people, the charming, successful man everyone admired, and the calculating manipulator only I saw clearly. He made sure of that. Her breathing grew more labored, each word clearly requiring immense effort. "I need to tell you, each of you, something important." She beckoned Jason closer. "Your father didn't make you complicit by accident. He targeted you specifically because you showed signs of questioning him. He feared your intelligence. Remember that. You were never weak, just outmaneuvered by a master." Jason nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I'll make it right, Mom. I promise." She turned to Rachel next. "My gentle peacemaker. You stayed to protect your children, just as I once stayed to protect all of you. There's no shame in that choice. But remember, peace at any cost isn't really peace at all." Rachel sobbed quietly, pressing Mom's hand to her cheek. Finally, Mom's eyes found mine. "Stephanie, my truth seeker. The letter. When I'm gone, it explains everything I couldn't say. About Elaine. About others Richard has hurt." Her voice dropped to a whisper only I could hear. "Be careful. He won't stop, even from far away." A sudden alarm from one of the monitors brought a nurse rushing in, her blood pressures dropping. She announced, quickly checking other vitals. "I need to get the doctor." As the medical team swarmed around Mom, we were ushered to the corner of the room. Thomas joined us, his arm around Rachel's shoulders as she wept. "I took care of what we discussed," he told Mom over the heads of the medical staff. "Everything is in place." Mom managed a small nod before her eyes drifted closed again. The doctor arrived, examined Mom quickly, and turned to us with a solemn expression. "Her organs are shutting down. It won't be long now. You should say your goodbyes." The medical staff discreetly withdrew, leaving us alone with Mom. We gathered around her bed once more, each holding a part of her hands, arm, shoulder, creating a circle of connection that should never have been broken. Remember when we'd all pile into the big bed during thunderstorms? Jason said suddenly. Dad would be away on business, and Mom would let us bring pillows and snacks, and we'd tell stories all night. She'd do different voices for each character, Rachel added, smiling through tears. And she always knew exactly what we needed to hear to make us feel brave. I finished. We spent the next hours sharing memories, sometimes laughing, sometimes crying, watching as Mom drifted in and out of consciousness. Each time her eyes opened, they seemed to take comfort in finding us still there, still together. As dawn turned to morning, then afternoon, her breathing grew more irregular. The monitors beeped less frequently. And just as the sun began its descent, casting golden light through the hospital window, Margaret Mitchell took her last breath, surrounded by the children who had finally understood her strength and sacrifice. In that quiet moment of profound loss, looking at my siblings' grief-stricken faces, I realized that our father had failed in his ultimate goal. He had tried to destroy our mother and divide her children against her. Instead, in her final hours, she had united us more powerfully than ever before. And I still had her letter to read, her final act of protection and love that would change everything. The days following Mom's death passed in a blur of funeral arrangements, legal meetings, and the constant vigilance required by the knowledge that our father was still at large. The FBI had confirmed that Richard Mitchell had indeed fled the country, traveling to Grand Cayman via a private charter. International warrants had been issued, but agents warned us that extradition could be complicated and lengthy. Garrett had vanished as well, presumably following my father to wherever he planned to hide. The threat they posed, while diminished by distance, still hung over us like a shadow. Your mother anticipated this scenario. Jonathan Bramwell told us during a meeting at his law office, 3 days after Mom's passing. A distinguished man in his 60s with steel gray hair had been working with Mom for over a year. She knew Richard would run rather than face consequences. That's why she was so methodical in her evidence gathering. How did she even know where to look? Jason asked. We were all gathered in Bramwell's wood-paneled conference room. Jason, Rachel, Thomas, and me. Your mother was far more observant and strategic than Richard gave her credit for, Bramwell replied, a hint of admiration in his voice. She noticed small discrepancies in household finances years ago but didn't confront him immediately. Instead, she started keeping records, watching patterns. When she discovered the affair with Diane, she used that as well following them, documenting meetings that turned out to be about more than just their relationship. She became her own private investigator. I marveled. Precisely. And a remarkably good one. Bramwell opened a thick file folder. Which brings us to the matter of your mother's will and final wishes. The will itself was straightforward. Mom had little in terms of personal assets, Dad had made sure of that, but she'd established a small separate account that would cover her funeral expenses. She wanted to be cremated, her ashes scattered in the garden at our childhood home. There's one more item, Bramwell said, sliding a sealed envelope across the table to me. Your mother left specific instructions that this be given to you, Stephanie, after the will was read. I recognized it immediately as the letter from her nightstand, the one Shed told me to read when she was gone. Can I? I gestured toward the door, suddenly needing privacy. Of course, Bramwell nodded. Take your time. I found a quiet corner in the hallway, my hands trembling as I carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a letter written in Mom's elegant handwriting, dated just 2 months ago. My dearest Stephanie, if you're reading this, I've lost my battle with cancer. I hope I had the chance to see you one last time, to explain in person what I'm about to share. If not, please know that I never doubted your love, even when circumstances kept us apart. What your father did to me, the gaslighting, isolation, and character assassination, was not his first time employing these tactics. Before me, there was Elaine Connor, his first wife who abandoned him after making false accusations about financial improprieties. Sound familiar? It took me years to find her. She lives in Sedona now, under the name Ellen Carter. We've been in correspondence for the past year, comparing notes on the man who systematically destroyed both our lives. The patterns are identical, Stephanie. The charm, the control, the threats, the manipulation of others to isolate his target. But Elaine wasn't his only victim before me. I've identified at least 3 other women, former employees or clients, who were systematically discredited after threatening to expose different aspects of his criminal behavior. Their information is in the blue folder in the storage unit, along with Elaine's contact details. Your father is what psychologists call a malignant narcissist. He views people as either assets or obstacles. When I became an obstacle, he did what he always does. He eliminated the threat by destroying my credibility and support system. I don't share this to burden you, but to protect you and your siblings. Richard will not stop simply because I'm gone. If anything, he may escalate now that I can no longer counter his narratives. The evidence I've gathered isn't just for justice. In my case, it's a shield for all of you against his inevitable attempts to regain control. My final wish is not for vengeance, but for healing. Yours, Jason's, Rachel's, and the healing of other women your father has hurt. I've established a foundation. Paperwork is with Jonathan, dedicated to supporting victims of psychological and financial abuse. I hope the three of you will carry this work forward. Remember, Stephanie, your father's greatest weapon was always isolation. He separated us from each other, made us doubt our own perceptions and memories. The antidote is connection and truth. Stay united with your siblings. Reach out to Elaine and the others. Together, you are stronger than he ever anticipated. My love for you has never wavered, not for a single moment. All my love, Mom. I read the letter twice more, tears streaming down my face, before returning to the conference room. The others looked up expectantly. Mom found Dad's first wife, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. And other victims. She's been building a case against him for years, not just about the financial crimes, but about his pattern of abuse and manipulation. Thomas nodded. Margaret confided in me about Elaine last year. I helped her make contact. Why didn't you tell us? Rachel asked, hurt evident in her voice. Margaret asked me not to. She wanted to gather all the evidence first, build an irrefutable case before Richard could start his smear campaign against these other women as well. Bramwell cleared his throat. There's more. Margaret established a foundation in all your names, the Mitchell Family Foundation for Survivors of Coercive Control. It's been quietly funded through an insurance policy she maintained separately from your father's knowledge. Jason's expression shifted from surprise to determination. She was thinking about others even while fighting for her own life. That was Margaret, Thomas said softly. Always putting others first. The conversation turned to funeral arrangements. Given the circumstances and the ongoing investigation, we decided on a private service rather than a public one. Dad had been socially prominent in Boston, and we couldn't be certain who among his associates might still be loyal to him. 2 days later, we gathered at the funeral home. Despite our efforts to keep the service private, I was struck by how few people attended. Dad's campaign of isolation had been devastatingly effective. Former friends and colleagues had distanced themselves from Mom, believing the rumors had spread. The handful who did come included Mrs. Parker. 2 of Mom's former book club members who'd maintained secret contact, and a nurse from the oncology floor who'd been particularly kind during her treatment. It was a painfully small gathering for a woman who had given so much to so many. As we stood beside the simple wooden casket, adorned only with a spray of her favorite lilies, I finally opened the letter I'd been carrying since that first day in the hospital, the one Shed left on her nightstand with instructions to read it when she was gone. It waited until now, wanting to honor her presence one last time before reading her final words. The letter contained much of what Shed already told me in person during her last days, but with additional details about Elaine Connor, Ellen Carter, and the other women Shed identified as Dad's victims. She included phone numbers, addresses, and notes about each woman's experience. At the end, she wrote, "My greatest regret is not recognizing Richard's true nature earlier, before he could draw Jason and Rachel into his web of deceit. My greatest hope is that through my death, the truth will finally be impossible to ignore. Use what I've gathered not just for justice, but for healing. These women have lived in fear for years, just as I have. Together, you might all find the peace that eluded me. Remember, forgiveness is not for the abuser, it's for yourself. I've forgiven Jason and Rachel for believing Richard's lies, just as I hope they can forgive me for not protecting them better from his manipulation. And Stephanie, my truth seeker, forgive yourself too. For the distance, for the doubts, for not seeing what was hidden so carefully from you. None of us is at fault for Richard's actions. That burden lies with him alone." As the simple service concluded and we prepared to leave, Jason touched my arm. "There's someone here to see us." A woman in her 60s stood at the back of the room, her silver hair cut in a stylish bob, her posture ramrod straight despite her evident anxiety. Something in her eyes was hauntingly familiar. "Elaine," I whispered. She nodded, stepping forward. "Ellen now. Ellen Carter. I had to come." Margaret helped me find my voice again after 30 years of silence. The least I could do was be here to honor her courage. Rachel moved toward her, hesitant. "You were our father's first wife." "Yes. And your mother was the first person to truly understand what I went through with him." She glanced around nervously. "Is it safe to talk here? Richard's out of the country?" Jason assured her. "And we have security." He nodded toward two men standing discreetly near the doors. Ellen relaxed slightly. Margaret contacted me a year ago. At first, I was terrified. I'd spent decades hiding from Richard, building a new life. But she was so persistent, so understanding. She knew details about his methods that no one could have guessed. How did he? I began, then faltered, unsure how to ask. How did he destroy me? Ellen finished, her voice steady despite the pain in her eyes. The same way he tried to destroy your mother. I discovered financial irregularities at his first accounting practice. He was just starting out then. When I confronted him, he began a campaign to discredit me, told friends I was having mental problems, planted evidence suggesting I was the one embezzling funds, isolated me from family and support systems. It was chillingly familiar, the same playbook had used decades later on Mom. I didn't have your mother's strength or resources, Ellen continued. When he threatened me physically, I ran, changed my name, moved across the country, started over. For 30 years I've looked over my shoulder, afraid he'd find me. Not anymore, Jason said firmly. We have enough evidence now to ensure he never hurts anyone again. Thomas approached, putting a gentle hand on Ellen's shoulder. Margaret wanted you all to meet. She believed that together, you could accomplish what neither she nor Ellen could do alone: expose Richard completely, and help other women recognize the warning signs before it's too late. As we left the funeral home together, I felt a strange sense of peace amid the grief. Mom might be gone, but Shed ensured her voice would continue to be heard. Through the evidence Shed gathered, through the foundation Shed established, through the connections Shed forged between her children and Richard's other victims. 1 year after Mom's passing, we gathered again, not at a funeral home, but at the headquarters of the Mitchell Family Foundation. What had begun as a small organization dedicated to supporting victims of psychological abuse had grown into a nationally recognized advocacy group. Jason had left Dad's firm to run it full-time, using his financial expertise to help victims rebuild their economic independence. Rachel organized support groups, while I handled public education and outreach. The FBI's international manhunt for Richard Mitchell was ongoing, but his power had been permanently dismantled. The evidence Mom gathered had led to multiple federal indictments, the collapse of his firm, and most importantly, the exoneration of her reputation. On this anniversary of her death, we unveiled a memorial garden at the Foundation's headquarters, a peaceful space where survivors could find reflection and healing. At its center stood a simple stone engraved with words from Mom's letter: "The antidote to isolation is connection and truth." As I stood beside the memorial, I thought about how thoroughly Dad had failed in his ultimate goal. He'd tried to erase Mom, to destroy her legacy and separate her from her children. Instead, Shed created something lasting and powerful from his abuse: a family reunited, a mission of protection and healing, and a network of survivors who would ensure his methods could never again go unrecognized. Ellen Carter, now a regular speaker at our events, often said that Margaret Mitchell had saved her life decades after Richard had nearly destroyed it. I believed her. Mom's quiet courage had rippled outward, touching lives Shed never even met. In the end, her final act of love hadn't just been for her children, but for all those who might be spared the pain she endured. The Foundation's first anniversary celebration brought together an unlikely family, not one connected by blood or marriage, but by a shared experience of survival. In addition to Ellen, WED located the 3 other women Mom had identified in her research. Patricia, a former client of Dad's firm who'd been systematically discredited after questioning account discrepancies. Sophia, an assistant who'd worked at the firm before Diane and had been forced to leave under a cloud of performance issues after witnessing irregular financial practices. And Meredith, a paralegal who'd dated Dad briefly before Mom, and had endured a vicious character assassination when she ended the relationship. Together, these women formed the core of our survivor advocacy program, sharing their stories to help others recognize the warning signs of psychological manipulation and financial abuse. The celebration was held in the Foundation's community center, once an abandoned warehouse, now transformed into a warm, welcoming space, with support group rooms, legal offices, and temporary housing for those escaping abusive situations. Though the event was significant for us all, attendance was modest. Dad's influence had been far-reaching in Boston's social circles, and many still preferred to distance themselves from the Mitchell family scandal. As I arranged flowers on the refreshment table, Ellen approached, her eyes on the memorial garden visible through the window. "Your mother would be proud," she said, her voice soft but strong, a voice that had grown more confident over the past year, "not just of this place, but of all 3 of you." I still wish Wed believed her sooner, I admitted, given her more time with her family before the end. Margaret understood better than anyone how Richard operated. She never blamed you children, Ellen touched my arm gently. The letter she left you, the one from the hospital, it helped, didn't it? I nodded, remembering how Id finally opened that first letter after the funeral, the one that had started everything. It gave us direction when we felt lost, purpose when all we had was grief and guilt. After the small gathering concluded, Jason, Rachel, and I made our way to the cemetery, where Wed placed a memorial stone for Mom, though her ashes had been scattered per her wishes. It had become our tradition to visit monthly, updating her on the Foundation's progress and our lives. The FBI thinks they've narrowed Dad's location to a compound in Barbados, Jason said as we placed fresh flowers beside the stone. They're working with local authorities, but it's complicated. He's apparently using a different identity now. Ellen's testimony was the breakthrough they needed, Rachel added. She had documentation we didn't even know existed, letters, where he essentially admitted to the financial crimes while threatening her. Mom knew. That's why finding Ellen was so important to her. I traced the engraving on the stone. Margaret Eleanor Mitchell, beloved mother, protector, truth teller. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, the late afternoon sun warming the autumn air. So much had changed in the year since Mom's death. Jason had not only left Dad's firm, but had testified against his former colleagues, many of whom were now facing charges for their roles in the financial crimes. His courage had cost him professionally, but had found new purpose in helping abused survivors navigate complex financial situations. Rachel had separated from Paul, a mutual decision after they realized their marriage had been built, partly on fear and appeasement of my father's expectations. She and the children were thriving in a smaller house, free from Dad's oppressive influence. Shed returned to teaching, her first passion before Dad had pressured her into a more suitable career in public relations. As for me, I'd relocated permanently from Seattle to Boston to help run the foundation. My previous corporate job had felt hollow after witnessing Mom's commitment to meaningful change. Now, each day brought new challenges but also profound satisfaction, as we helped others escape the isolation and self-doubt that characterized relationships like my parents. I found something interesting in the storage unit yesterday, Jason said, breaking the silence. A journal Mom kept during her first year of marriage to Dad. It's illuminating. She saw red flags even then, but she rationalized them away. Like what? Rachel asked. Small things at first. Dad isolating her from college friends he deemed negative influences, taking control of their finances immediately, giving her an allowance despite her having her own career. Subtle put-downs disguised as helpful advice. Jason sighed. The pattern was there from the beginning, just in miniature. That's what our education program focuses on, I noted. Those early warning signs that seem innocuous in isolation but form a pattern of control. The Foundation's reached over 500 people directly in just 1 year, Rachel said proudly, and the online resources have been accessed by thousands more. That's Mom's real legacy, I said. Not just helping us see the truth, but making sure others can see it too, before it's too late. As dusk fell, we gathered our things to leave. Jason paused, looking at Mom's memorial stone one last time. I keep expecting Dad to strike back somehow, he admitted. It doesn't seem like him to just disappear. He's a coward at heart, I replied. Without his social standing and financial power, he has no weapons left. Besides, Rachel added, we're not afraid anymore. That's what really matters. On our way out of the cemetery, my phone rang. Thomas, calling with news that the FBI had officially seized Dad's remaining domestic assets after a court ruling. The funds would be held in escrow pending the outcome of the criminal case, but a significant portion had been earmarked for restitution to his victims. It's happening, just like Mom planned, I told my siblings after hanging up. Justice is slow, but it's coming. That night, alone in my apartment, I took out Mom's hospital letter again. I'd read it countless times over the past year, finding new meaning in her words with each reading. The paper had softened with handling, the ink slightly faded, but her message remained as powerful as ever. The final paragraph always moved me the most. Remember, my darling daughter, that even in our darkest moments, truth has a way of finding the light. Richard built his empire on lies, manipulation, and fear. It was always destined to fall. In contrast, what we build on love, honesty, and courage will outlast any attempt to destroy it. My love for you, for Jason, for Rachel, that is my true legacy. Carry it forward, let it guide you, and know that whenever you stand for truth, I am standing beside you still. I folded the letter carefully and returned it to its envelope. Then I opened my laptop to finalize the Foundation's newest initiative, a scholarship program for children of abuse survivors, named in Mom's honor. It would launch on what would have been her 60th birthday, ensuring that her name would be associated not with scandal or tragedy, but with hope and new beginnings. A year ago, Id returned to Boston to find my mother dying alone, abandoned by her family based on lies carefully crafted by the man who had promised to love her. Id discovered a sealed letter with 5 devastating words. "Read this when I'm gone." That letter had changed everything, not just for me and my siblings, but for Ellen Carter, for Patricia, Sophia, and Meredith, and now for hundreds of others who were finding their way out of the darkness of manipulation and abuse into the light of truth and connection. Mom's final gift hadn't been the evidence against Dad, though that was important. It had been the gift of understanding, of seeing clearly how abuse functions and how it can be overcome. In her final days, Shed taught us that the true antidote to isolation wasn't just reunion but purpose, using our painful experience to help others avoid the same fate. I think of her words often. Forgiveness is not for the abuser, it's for yourself. In forgiving ourselves for failing to see through Dad's manipulation sooner, we've found the strength to ensure that her voice silenced for so long will continue to be heard through the work we do in her name. Has someone in your family ever protected you in ways you only realized much later? Have you ever discovered that something you thought was true your whole life was actually a carefully constructed lie? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that they're not alone in their struggles. Remember, breaking the silence is the first step toward healing. Thank you for listening to my mother's story and mine.